Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Shervin Shaffie and I'm a Technical Solutions Architect with Cisco. And today we're talking about Cisco Cloud Calling. In this episode, we'll review what is Cisco Cloud Calling, what is UCM Cloud, what is Webex Calling, what are the differences between these Cisco Cloud Calling solutions, and ultimately, I'll give you some pointers on how to decide which one is the best solution for your environment. As always, post any questions you might have in the comments section. Sit back and enjoy. Now, here's the real question, right? Because a lot of folks are in this situation where they've been Cisco calling customers for years, and now they're looking at cloud calling. So they often ask me and my counterparts, sure, what do we do? What cloud solution do we go with, or do we just stay on premise? And so obviously it really depends on the requirements, right? So we sit down with customers, we go through all the requirements, and then for me it kind of nets out like this at a high level. If you have a very mission critical need, like you have a trauma one hospital and you need those phones to stay up, well, then maybe you don't want to have your communications manager subscribers out in the cloud somewhere, because customers have told me that in some situations, in some metropolitan areas, even if they have multiple WAN links from different providers, something can happen where all those connections get severed and then everyone's kind of in a bad situation, right? All the phones are down. So if you can have a local subscriber in that same building as that trauma one hospital, then you should just stay with on-premise. That doesn't mean that that is the case for everybody. You might be an organization where you have some mission critical and you also have 90% that's not mission critical. And so that begs the case for a hybrid design where you implement UCM Cloud for 90% or Webex Calling for 90%, and for the mission critical you stay with on-premise. So that would be number one. Now, if you would love to go to a true SaaS cloud calling solution, that's the equivalent of Webex meetings on voice, then Webex Calling is a solution for you, because that is 100% pure cloud, connecting over the internet to Webex Calling and getting that feature velocity and just the ease of use of onboarding, which is awesome, which is one of the benefits of calling, and also the scale and the global availability of Webex Calling. Finally, there's many reasons why you'd want to go to UCM Cloud. I think most often what I see is that IT teams are familiar with Communications Manager, so they're just more likely to go to UCM Cloud because it's something that's a known commodity. It's just shifting from their data center to the cloud. So if you're kind of in that transition state where you're starting to get comfortable with the idea of cloud, but you're not 100% comfortable with the idea of a true cloud solution like Webex Calling, then I kind of consider UCM Cloud that intermediary step where you can go to it, you can move a percentage of your population from on-premise to the cloud, and when you are ready to go 100% cloud, then you can start to shift some of that workforce from UCMC to Webex Calling. By the way, I've said it throughout this call, you can mix and match these different solutions and still have a unified dial plan. It's a little complex, but architects and our engineers would be happy to work with you to design that. Let's look at UCMC first, Unified Communications Manager Cloud. So basically, it's your own dedicated instance of CUCM in a Cisco data center. And everything we talked about in the previous session, the on-premise calling, applies to UCMC as well in terms of architecture, scalability. The only difference is that now Cisco is building it. Cisco is getting the UCS hardware and putting the software on it and operating it and maintaining it and making sure that the service updates and all the patches and everything is applied. And when the next version of CUCM comes out, like version 14, they'll upgrade it for you. And by the way, you can actually ask the Cisco data center team to hold it back one rev. So if you want to stay on 12.6 when 14 comes, you can make that request. But all that burden of finding the right hardware and getting the right software and making sure your licensing is correct is lifted off your shoulders now, and it's just basically managed by Cisco. Now, once UCMC is stood up in the data center, it's up to a partner that you select or Cisco services to configure it for you, to make sure that all the users and the extensions and the features that you want are set up exactly the way you want it. So that burden is also lifted off your shoulders. Plus, they'll manage the day two support. So once a project is done and all your sites are configured, any moves and adds and changes that happen down the road, that's also taken care of by the partner or Cisco itself. Now, I forgot to mention that UCMC is a global solution. We have data centers, multiple data centers in the US, multiple data centers in Europe, and multiple data centers in Asia Pacific. So it's truly a global solution. Once the service is up and running, it's really your phones and video endpoints that are in your offices or in home offices around the world that just need to connect to the UCMC service. And so the way you connect is very flexible. You can either extend your MPLS network into our UCM Cloud, you can use SD-WAN, you can use Equinix, the Equinix Cloud Exchange. Most of these are private connections, so instead of going over the internet where you lose a lot of control, if you choose these private connections, then you're able to apply quality of service and monitor the network and really make sure that the quality of the video and audio is exactly the way you want it. Now, because UCMC is really just UCM hosted in a Cisco data center, if you have on-premise clusters that you want to keep, you can create a hybrid design. And if you put two phones that are next to each other connected to the on-premise or to cloud running the same version, users won't be able to tell the difference because they're exactly the same, just connecting to your on-premise versus to our UCM Cloud. So hybrid designs make a lot of sense and also help you gradually shift from on-premise to the cloud. Now let's shift gears real quick and look at Webex Calling, which is from our BroadSoft acquisition. So first of all, you can use any of the 7800 or the 8800 series phones that we have. You just have to load the MPP firmware and you're good to go. So this means that if you have older phones like the 7900 series, those are not going to work with Webex Calling. So that's something important to note. Now, a lot of folks are really excited about Webex Calling because it's a true multi-tenant calling solution. Similar to Webex Meetings, that it's multi-tenant, so is Webex Calling. And so what this means is that generally the feature velocity is faster. Once a month, you're going to get new features and updates. And then on the feature side, people are sometimes concerned moving from Communications Manager, and they often tell me, Sherv, is every single feature that Communications Manager has going to also be on Webex Calling? And my response generally is, do you really need every single feature that is on Communications Manager to also be on Webex Calling? Because the reality is most people don't use the really unique features that Communications Manager has. Most people are good with hold and transfer and mute and maybe hunt groups and hunt lists and things like that, which certainly Webex Calling has, and it has probably 90% of the features that Communications Manager has. So does Webex Calling. So for me, if you have corner cases where some of your users need some amazing features that Communications Manager or UCM Cloud has and Webex Calling doesn't, well, you can always create a cluster for those users and blend them into your Webex Calling solution. I really love cloud calling solutions or anything that's true cloud because of the flexibility to be able to onboard real quick, to be able to get those features really quick. So that is definitely a positive for a solution like Webex Calling. Another thing that I like about Webex Calling is you can do most of your configuration from Control Hub. So if you're one of these customers that has Cisco Calling and messaging and meetings, then you can do everything from Control Hub. You can also pull your reports and analytics from Control Hub. Now, CUCM is actually working to be able to allow you to do your configuration from Control Hub, so that's coming. But today you can do all that with Webex Calling from Control Hub. Webex Calling does still have its own native interface, so if there are some really advanced features that Webex Calling has, you can always go to its native interface. But for the most part, when you're adding users, you're adding their devices, you're making some changes to their configuration, you can do all of it from Control Hub. The other thing that I forgot to mention is that Webex Calling is a global solution. There are a few countries in the world now, like 99% of the countries are out there and they support Webex Calling, but there are a few that don't have it. So just make sure you're checking the list of global availability, and that's always changing. And now for those countries that don't support Webex Calling today, you can always go with a hybrid design where you leverage an on-premise to UCM or maybe use UCM Cloud, and you can mix these together. That's it. I hope you found this session useful. As always, post any questions you have in the comment section. I'll catch you on the next one.